Alright guys, welcome to the new video. I hope you're all doing well. Today we're going to talk about what speed is actually achievable on big slalom gear. So I just saw the post by Maciek the other day claiming that he did 43.7 knots on Tenerife, and that on his big slalom gear, the 85 wide board and the 8.6 sail. On Tenerife, 43.7 knots. And of course, as it turned out the other day, he posted a video about this session, and it was in fact just a troll post. He didn't do the speed, which would have been incredible and like the fastest speed ever done on this kit. And his point being that there's so many shit posts on Instagram and Facebook of people claiming to have done some amazing speeds, but you never see any proof of that, you just see some numbers. So what he did was he just took the GPS and he drove around Tenerife in his car and did this speed and showed the post, and everyone believed it, and it's quite a funny video.
All you need is this phone, this GPS speed watch, the broken screen adds to the drama, and a bit of imagination.
So make sure to check out his video. I'll put the link of the video in the description below. And for that reason, I think it's really important to have some kind of ratification for the speeds that people are doing. And I think the gpsspeedsurfing.com website is doing a fantastic job of providing a flat platform for speed surfers where they can post their speeds and other people can see where they did them. And obviously it gets a lot more credible when you post your speeds there. So I think it's a really cool way of sharing your sessions on this website, which I'm doing all the time when I'm windsurfing actually. But even then, when people post their sessions and you can actually see where they did their speeds, I've actually heard of some people using jet skis on the actual spot to get their speeds on the speed venue, so you cannot really see that it's not done on a windsurfer but on a jet ski. There is stuff like that, of course. But anyway, this video will be about what speed is actually achievable on the big kit. Is 43.7 knots realistic? Can someone achieve that in the near future? So first of all, when I mean big kit, I'm talking about the 85 slalom board and any sails bigger than 8 square meters. Because in that category, I think that the slalom gear improved the most over the last few years. You can look at the speed boards, like for example the famous JP Speed 45, which is basically a design from I think 2006 or 7, and it's basically unchanged the layout of the board since that year. So for around 15 years they haven't changed the layout of the board because they cannot find a better one. And it's the same with all the manufacturers, like the Fanatic speedboard is already I think more than 5 years old, so there's not much change. But on the big kit like the 85, I think there has been the most change in the slalom gear over the last few years. So yeah, on the big boards we saw the most change over the last few years, and basically what they did is the tail of the board is really wide, but you have big cutouts, and the fins nowadays are very soft under those boards. You have around 44 to 46 centimeter fins that are really soft. And what that results in is the board rides really freely over the fin, so you basically don't have a whole lot of wetted surface area on those boards. Even though they are pretty large, you don't have much drag by that. The limiting factor, in my opinion, is really the drag of the fin in the water, which are around 45 centimeters, and speedboards ride on around 20 centimeter fins. So I think this is the limiting factor, but the boards are actually not producing a whole lot of drag, because if you look at some footage here, you can see that the board is really not touching the water anymore when you're riding fully powered up. So you can go really fast these days on this kit. Also the sails are now one batten less than they were a couple years ago, and a lot lighter, so also the bigger sails produce a lot more power but are lighter these days. And I think these are the reasons that the big gear nowadays is really much improved compared to a few years back. So let's actually look at a couple of examples how fast you can go on the big kit. So first of all, I'm going to talk about my own experience on the big gear. And until around last year, mid-2020, I've been stuck at around 33 to 34 knots top speed on the big kit, which at the time was an 81 wide Taboo Manta for me. And just last year, I received the new 85 Falcon. And on this board, I was actually immediately a whole lot faster than I ever was on the 81 wide board, which I think was from 2013. So I got a board that was 5 years newer, and my speeds actually increased from 33 to 34 knots to around 35 knots. And I actually had one session at my local lake where I peaked 35.5 knots on the max speed. I'll put up the session here on the screen. For now I'm at around 35.5 knots on the big kit, so that's a long way off from 43.7 knots, but actually I'm not a pro rider and I'm also not the heaviest rider. I'm around 85 kilograms, and for me this is a really good speed. And as I did it on a lake where there is some chop, unfortunately I don't have any video footage of the session, so maybe I did it on a jet ski, who knows. But anyway, I think maybe if I do it at a flat spot on big kit, I can maybe go 1 to 2 knots faster, but I think that around 37 knots for me is maybe the limit that I can do with an 8.4 sail and an 85 wide board. So the next example I want to bring up of someone who is extremely fast on big kit is a Dutch windsurfer. His name is Edwin Harteveld. So he did more than 41 knots, I'll put up his exact speed on the screen, on the maximum speed in the Netherlands, which is incredible. I think if you look at this session, it doesn't say exactly how wide his board was, but I think it was not an 85 wide board. I think it was more like 70 to 80 wide, so a little bit smaller, but that speed is still incredible on big kit. But what you have to look out for here, this guy is really tall. He is more than 2 meters and I think, according to his profile here, more than 120 kilograms. So what you have to take into consideration is that for him an 8.6 sail is more like a 7.0 sail for myself, if you consider the proportions of the guy compared to someone else. So I think it doesn't make a lot of sense to compare my speeds on an 8.6 sail to his speeds on an 8.6 sail, because obviously when he goes on an 8.6 sail, the wind will be 5 knots more or even more than when I'm going on an 8.6 sail. But still, I think his speed is pretty incredible, so I wanted to bring it up. Alright, so the last example I wanted to talk about is the speed my good friend Gunnar Asmussen did on his big slalom gear, and I think it's one of the most incredible speeds out there. So he posted a session where he did 40 knots top speed on the 85 wide and on the 8.6 sail, and it was not on a real speed venue, it was in between the waves. So this, I think, is one of the fastest speeds that anyone has ever done on this big kit, and I think he is around, let's see, on his profile here on GPS Speed Surfing it says 99 kilograms, so also he's a guy that's more on the heavier side, so for him it is actually a little bit easier to go this fast on the big kit compared to someone like me that's 85 kilograms or someone that's even lighter. So yeah, let's come to a conclusion. 43.7 knots, is that realistic? I would say for a regular surfer that's not super heavy and tall, this is not really achievable, but I think it can be done by someone who is extremely tall and extremely heavy. He can maybe do it on an 8.6 and an 85 wide board if he goes to a real speed venue, something like La Franquise or even somewhere in the Waddenzee, and if he takes the best conditions. But at that point, really, what's the point of taking this gear if he would be a lot faster going on smaller slalom gear just to get the speed on this big gear? I don't really see the point in that, but I think yes, it can be done, but not by someone that's under 100 kilograms realistically. And yeah, let's see if the gear improves further in the future, because as we've seen in the last few years, the speeds of the big kit really came closer and closer to the speeds of the speed gear, whereas the speeds of the speed gear improved by maybe 1 knots over the last few years by the best guys. So it's getting a lot closer, the speeds we can do on the big gear. Alright, that's it for this video. I thought that was a really interesting subject that Maciek brought up, and I just wanted to do something like a reaction video on this, so I really hope you enjoyed this. If you did, you know what to do. Subscribe, like, and I'll see you in the next one. I'm still in Spain, and yeah, we don't have any wind at the moment, but as soon as there's action again, I'll take you along. See you.